it doesn't require proof that there's voter fraud to say that the election was unconstitutionally administered in these four states, and that would turn the election.
Turn the election for Donald Trump.
Yes, I think it would. And even if the Supreme Court said, well, we're not going to give these votes to Donald Trump, and probably they would just exclude them from Biden. Now, what that would likely mean is, I think the election is going to go into Congress to be decided, because I believe that this entire election was so badly administered. It had so many, I think, mathematical and statistical issues of proving fraud that we know fraud occurred,
right?
And we know it was fairly massive,
right?
And that, I think, means we've got a failed election. The election is essentially, what they say in World War II and still today say in the military, FUBAR. It's messed up beyond all recovery. You're never going to be able to recover. How are you ever going to sort out which votes were legitimate, which votes weren't? When you had computers switching votes, you had all the mail-in ballots being produced in the last minute.
Jerry, what I understand is that they did a sample test the other day in Michigan, and they ran 50%. They had ballots. They did, let's say if they had 100 ballots, they ran 50-50. and the machines switched the Trump votes to Biden. Right there when they ran the test, dude. This wasn't done by a Trump campaign. This was done by the state of Michigan. It is hilarious. No, it's not hilarious. It's a crying shame, and it's always. It's always, when we see these errors, they always err for the Democrat. Here in Chicago, we had the same thing. And the error was always for who? The Democrat. Go ahead.
These are not errors. These are not errors, Charles. These are intentional manipulation.
Oh, no question.
And if you look at it, the Democrats have been saying for 25 years that they figured out the best way to win elections was to steal them. And they have been trying everything imaginable. Just look at the history. We've had, it doesn't make any difference if they're legal or not. Let the immigrants vote. Let everybody who comes across the border, give them a chance to vote. And besides that, let's let them out of the prison. They can vote too. And let's just let them show up on election day, and we'll register them and they can vote. I mean, these kinds of rules are rigged for fraud, and I think everybody knows it.
Yeah, but the question that I have, Jerry, is why are they allowed to be implemented and then you have to go fight them? They shouldn't be implemented in the first place. Here in Illinois, we have same-day voter registration without any voter ID.
Yeah, I mean, you just show up, a busload of people come across from Indiana, and they just decide they're going to vote in Chicago, and who's going to stop them?
But the real scenario is they don't come out of Indiana; they come out of Wisconsin.
Well, okay, Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's where they bring busloads of people across from Wisconsin, and they vote in the northern counties, and that's been well documented. It was documented in 2016 that happened, and we're sure that happened here in 2020.
Well, Charles, it's happening right now in Georgia. I mean, Georgia says, okay, come on in to Georgia, get a motel, and say you're moving into the state, and you can vote. Now, I mean, that's an invitation for all kinds of activists to decide, well, let's just go vote in Georgia. We'll get a motel. We'll get funded to have a motel. We'll get flown in. We'll have a nice little couple-day vacation, and we'll vote in Georgia.
Well,
and
Jerome, one of the things that tickled me is this pastor down there, Warnock.
Yeah.
He is about one serious buffoon, and we don't need another black preacher in Congress. He says, most of the black congressmen are pastors. We don't need another black congressman in Congress.
The point that it gets me is that anybody with half a brain can see that the way the Democrats have been pushing to change voting laws means that they intend to steal elections. And if you can't win elections, steal elections. The country has not been moving in a socialist, communist, progressive direction. And yet you have midterm elections where the Democrats gain all these seats. I think we've had fraudulent voting for a long time. And now this year they got it to a point where actually Trump had done so well that they panicked in the middle of the election night counting and decided they better stop voting and produce a massive new amount of ballots or they were going to lose because their cheating hadn't been calculated to be enough. They want to cheat just so much that they win but not get caught. And that calculation failed this year. So now they're looking like a bunch of a gang
Jerry,
in a neighborhood.
Jerry, hold it. When you go to bed, I went to bed. Pennsylvania was 73% counted, and Trump was up by 600,000 votes.
Right.
It is unconscionable for me to believe that the state of Pennsylvania voted for a man who said on TV, I'm going to take away 300,000 jobs and I'm going to retrain you in coding jobs that don't exist.
Precisely.
Who in the hell would vote for somebody? Who in the hell? I'm going to say this again. Who in the hell would vote for someone who just said, I am going to take away your livelihood and put you on the streets? I've done it before and I'll do it again, damn it.
And Charles, besides that, I'm going to take away your oil and gas industries. We don't need to be having any coal anymore. I mean, that has to play pretty well in Pennsylvania as well. The whole thing is nothing that Biden did in the campaign had any real appeal to voters. We're going to increase your taxes. We're going to impose all these new social restrictions on you. So we're going to have diversity and we're all racist. And besides that, we're going to have Green New Deal and take away your hydrocarbon fuel and destroy your economy with massive taxation and all the other things they threatened to do. They didn't get votes on this. They got votes on stealing votes. And the mathematics of that surge at the end, as you've just pointed out, can be proven the only way it could occur was with fraud.
Well, there had to be. And the bottom line is you've had thousands of people who've come forward with the affidavits, and you have these ignorant people who say, well, that's baseless. An affidavit's not baseless, you effing moron.
I mean, really. And the key point to me is if we let this happen this time,
mm-hmm.
there won't be any more elections in this country because you'll never, if they think we can get away with this kind of fraud, well, why even bother having an election? Just cancel them altogether, or they're going to be rigged from the beginning, so it won't make any difference how you voted because the machines are going to vote the way the people in control, the Democrats, want the vote to come out.
Well, Jerry, I've often said that. What do you call these tests? Standardized tests?
Yes.
And these tests for, what do you call it? These tests, these professional tests. I took a test, and you're familiar with the test. The test is called a Series 7. I took the Series 7 the first time. You know what I scored on the test, Jerry?
No. What'd you score?
60 effing 9. What is passing? 70. But you know what I did? I put down I was black. Put down Black American. Boop. And I said, I know this stuff. How could I not pass this? I know it, right? I know straddles, I know hurdles, I know options, and the questions I'm getting 100% on my test questions. I mean, how did I fail this thing? So listen, Jerry, I take the test again. What do? I put down African American. What do I get? 68. I fail it again. I'm like, I don't fail tests, especially standardized tests. I never failed. I've always done well in standardized tests. So, Jerry, what do I do the third time? I don't put down anything. Okay.
Good.
And you know what I got?
Probably about 98.
86. 86.
Yeah, of course. Of course you did.
I mean, really? So I knew then and there. And I wanted to challenge Jesse Jackson to challenge these tests, but that's not something he's interested in. When we look at Thomas Sowell just wrote a book. It's called, it's about charter schools. And in the book, he asked the questions, why do charter schools provide higher test scores, standardized test scores for black children than the public school system? And the answer is simple. The charter school teachers care and they teach. And they have rules and they have regulations, and the children don't run the classroom. Jerry, I don't know about you, but I belong to a number of civic groups, and some of these civic groups, they principal for a day or visit this class. Man, it's like an animal house. They have too many women in education. The men who I ran into in these schools, they said, we need more men in these schools to control these children. They run all over these women. So I asked the president of the Teachers Association, Chicago Teachers Union, a lady named Carol Lewis, very nice woman. She used to come on my show all the time. Carol, how can you ask for a raise when you have the lowest test scores in the country? You have the third lowest test scores in the country and the third highest salaries. She said, well, Charles, we can justify that because we have to first be sociologists, and we have to be psychologists, and we have to be parents to the children, and we have to make sure they're fed. I said, well, those are all things that I think belong in the family. You're supposed to teach reading, writing, arithmetic, right? She said, well, we can't do that until we feed the children and we find out how they feel, how the day's going. I said, so when do you teach?
Yeah, they don't teach anything. They don't teach anything.
When do you teach? I mean, she was very serious about, caring for when I showed up in school, when we showed up in school at 7:15 or 7:30, whatever time homeroom started, man, it was serious. You shut up. They took roll call. If you were tardy, you got dinged. You got your books out your locker. You took your butt to class. You sat there. You listened. You did your work. You didn't clown around. You didn't interrupt the teacher. It was great. Anyway.
Well, no, I agree with you, Charles. This is part of the problem, and we've had it on an increasing basis, is that we've gone into a society that everybody gets a participation award. You don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. This whole leftist agenda, which does not demand excellence or does not reward achievement, and then you add on to it all of the problems with radicalizing race the way it has been. I mean, in my lifetime, the issue of race has gone 180-degree change for the positive. Now, it doesn't mean it's all done, but I'll tell you, it was not like it was in 1954. I remember how it was, and that we've come a long way. And instead of let's continue advancing along this line, what we're doing is we're radicalizing race now, so that everybody's called a racist if they don't like something about your ideas. You believe in God, or
you believe in marriage. You believe in marriage. You believe in marriage. You believe in that people who have babies out of wedlock are, who don't have the money. See, there's a difference between a woman who's a doctor or a lawyer and has a baby out of wedlock than someone who has no skills or in high school and has no future and doesn't know what she's going to do or be, or what her child is going to do or be. Big difference. So when Murphy Brown was parading around and she was having a baby out of wedlock, you've been a career woman for 20 years, you dumb heifer. They missed that, Jerry. They totally ignored the fact that Murphy Brown, who kind of legitimized a woman having a child on her own, she can have a child on her own and make that decision. We don't need men. Black Lives Matter. We don't need men. Two lesbians.
I know. The whole thing is so messed up, Charles, these days. I mean, as far as I can see, we continue down this path. We're headed into the kind of confusion that produces civil wars, it produces international wars. It's reminded me of the period 1920s between the two wars, the kind of cultural upheaval that went on in Germany when Hitler was coming in and taking over. These kind of social disruptions and reassessments of values from a radical point of view are breaking an underlying consensus that had made America great. And the middle America still has that consensus. You're really dealing with the inner cities and the coast and West Coast and New York. And this is where the radicalization has occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Across America. A lot of the traditional values that you see in the America First support of Donald Trump are there. And what's I think so alarming to these cultural leftist elites is that the moderates in the Democratic Party are joining Trump. Minorities are increasingly coming over to Trump. And people are saying these bizarre lifestyles and this bizarre thinking is not really productive. We're not getting anywhere with it.
Well, the thing that tickles me, and this is why I say that people get what they vote for. The first thing Nancy Pelosi thought was important was the fact that transgenders should be able to go into the bathroom of their choice, and that transgendered people boys be allowed to participate in girl sports. Now, I laugh because I thought this is very classic, but it's very appropriate, and I'm glad it happened in Connecticut. These little black boys claim to be transgendered, right? They claim to be girls, right? And so they set records, Jerry. They set records where if these women evolved, they would not even come close to matching in the next 20 years. But these same boys who own the women's state records couldn't even qualify for the boys' state records in the same events.
Well, this is
they couldn't qualify, Jerry. Do you get it?
Oh, I know. I get it.
But I'm glad it happened in Connecticut because Connecticut is a bastion of liberal BS.
I know.
And I'm glad that those liberals, their daughters are being ran out of. There was this cute little girl. She worked hard all her life to be a great athlete. She wanted to go to the Olympics and all. She was totally smoked in her events by the boys. And she was on TV. She did a video complaining about this. I watched the whole thing. It's about 20 minutes. I watched the whole thing. I laughed my butt off because her parents are probably dyed-in-the-wool Connecticut Democrat liberals. They're getting what they deserve.
Well, I agree. The problem is once you get down this insanity and we start down this identity politics and your sexuality is anything you decide it is. I'm a reincarnated, some kind of animal who is really male but thinks I'm female, or all the variations you get are insanity. And you can think that way if you want to, but what you produce is a confused society.
I'm not. Jerry, I'm not confused. I refuse to participate. I refuse to participate. I call Bruce Jenner. When Bruce cuts his junk off down there, then he's Caitlyn or Susie or Betsy or whatever the hell he wants to be. But as long as he got a penis swinging between his legs, he's Bruce Jenner to me. Okay.
Well, and look, that's where I go back to between the wars and in Nazi Germany. You take a look at the freak shows that became their nightclubs and their theater, and the confusion, the thinking that was rampant because of breakdown in morals after World War I. And you see how our culture is going through the same kind of crisis where these values are so mixed up that they're coming up with things that are just impossibly crazy. Unfortunately, the world is not whatever you want it to be. You can't put a hole at the bottom of your boat so you can watch the fish and expect to sail.
Well, Jerry, let me just say this, because Barack Obama is part of this madness. It was rumored that his sister said that he had a transgendered nanny that he was terrified of when he was growing up. And that nanny probably molested him like Frank Lloyd Davis, who claimed that his grandparents gave him to, knowing all the time that Frank Lloyd Davis was hiding out in Hawaii so that he wouldn't be charged with child molestation charges here in the United States. How about that?
Frank Marshall Davis. Yeah.
Frank Marshall Davis.
Yeah. And he wrote a sex book, which is about his, and was part, probably all autobiographical, mixed, hidden by the veneer of fiction. And he was engaging in some bizarre behavior in that book, and it was all considered normal. He was a beachcomber out in Hawaii, picking up white women and doing whatever. I mean, it was bizarre culture again. And you get into this. Look, Charles, fundamentally, what we're going down through is now this cultural mirrors, a hall of mirrors, in which things are illusionary, and everybody's chasing after these illusions. When the Chinese are over here teaching people nuclear science and all the advanced medicine in the world, and they're producing a generation where they sort out who's intelligent and who's going to be educated and who's going to be qualified for what jobs. They're onto a advancement track when the rest of the world's off here worrying about transgender nonsense. That's not a productive way to produce
and the rest of the world
science.
And the rest of the world is laughing at us, talking about integrating these queers into the community. I know Russia and China are laughing their asses off, going, I would love to see these queers come against me in combat. I will kill them.
Oh, absolutely. This is where societies like ours begin to self-destroy and to self-destruct. And now if we can't even tell that there's fraud in an election when it's out in the open, and we have to go through all this nonsense to go back to the rules of the Constitution, and the propaganda war that is being waged to say that Biden is president and take a knee and just surrender because it'll be a lot easier. No, it's not going to be a lot easier when Antifa is in your living room screaming at you because you got a Bible and you have Second Amendment weapons legally in the house and children that you want to educate to believe in Jesus Christ. Now you're in deep trouble.
Well, you know,
that's not going to stop.
Well, you know, the beauty of all of this is this. I've seen conservatives, I've seen Republicans stand up for themselves finally and get off the fucking fence. Jerry, we're warriors. We get out here, we speak our mind, we stand out front. And we're very proud of who we are, what we think, and we're very proud Americans. Most of the conservatives and Republicans I know, they hide. They hide their true feelings because they may lose their jobs or they may lose their friends. So they hide the fact that they love Donald Trump. They hide the fact that they don't want open borders. They hide the fact that they have traditional values. They believe in God. They believe in the red, white, and blue. They believe that America's a great country. They hide. Now they have to come out. They have to come out because you have Antifa, you have Black Lives Matter, who is attacking everyone who is not identified as a member of their group.
Well, Charles, I think we're going to have to come to an end of this at some point because at some point the society begins to completely disintegrate and it self-destructs. This type of insanity only leads in a downward destructive direction. And if there's any benefit to this year, it's I think that everybody gets to see exactly what Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and what the Democrats really are about. And if you want, the city spray painted and destroyed and looted with mobs running around and the police unable to do anything because they're being defunded and people are being arrested and indicted with crimes because they dared to defend themselves and their property from attack and assault. If we want to live in this kind of a world, we're going to self-destruct as a nation. We'll become Venezuela in a very quick period of time. And
Jerry, people keep saying that. People said that during the election. And look how many people went out and voted for Donald Trump without the cheating.
Sure.
I mean, I'm sorry. Look at how many people went out and voted for Joe Biden without the cheating. Look at the people who voted for this son of a gun.
Well, there's clearly, I don't think, Charles, there's anywhere near what they say voted for him. I think that basically there are some yet who are Democrats and who just are continuing to drink the Kool-Aid. But the point is, I think the radicalization of America is a small percentage. I think it's only about 17% of the population that really buys this critical race theory nonsense and where everything is going. But again, you've got a society where everybody thinks that you should get a college education free. And when you get everybody in college and half of them shouldn't be there. How are you going to teach the advanced subjects that you need to teach to get expertise and the development of a next generation that's going to be capable of creating the future society that needs to be created? And it's going to be more technologically sophisticated. It's going to require more advanced skills, and we're not producing them right now.
Jerry, I think what you're forgetting is that colleges don't cultivate critical thinkers anymore. Colleges,
no, they don't.
Colleges clone people who think alike in this socialist mode.
That's right.
I cannot remember. I remember when I first noted that was a young man. One of my friend's sons came home from Harvard, and this kid is brilliant. He's brilliant academically, supposedly. And I'm listening to this Harvard student speak, and he's totally effed up. I mean, he doesn't have any critical thought. He doesn't have any facts. It's like my professor said, and my professor said. I'm like, well, what research did you do? Well, we just read what the professor writes, and so you just record the professor and see how well you can remember what he said and put it on a paper, and that's how you get a grade. Well, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's it. How do you? That's not an education.
Yeah, that's it. It's not an education. They're not teaching thinking. They're teaching obedience and recitation. And in the subjects, look at the subjects. Okay, so now we've got this studies and that studies and this studies, women's studies, black studies, cultural studies, all these studies. And I'm thinking to myself, when this first came on in the late 60s in universities, I'm saying to myself, what happened to, I'm over here in the computer science center working on regression equations, programming computers in Fortran to do advanced mathematical analysis of social data. What happened to that?
Well, you couldn't get a job. You couldn't get a job in those things. PhD in aerospace engineering meant post-hole digger.
Yeah, it's just
those
ridiculous.
Programs weren't being funded after we went to the moon. Remember?
Well, and I come out and then I'm in competition for jobs at universities with this one's a Latino student who got a PhD over here in Latino studies and Marxism and blah blah blah. And that's here I'm all trying to get grants applied to for the National Science Foundation to do advanced research and getting them. But I'm not in competition. This guy's going to get the job because he's culturally and socially and Marxist, and his ideas fit in. He's not a threat to anybody in the university. That's when I pretty much decided I'm out of here. This is not for me. I'm leaving this place.
Where were you in school, Jerry? Where were you in school?
Oh, well, I mean, I first I went to Case Western Reserve for undergraduate. I did my Harvard. I got my PhD. I taught at several universities. The last one I taught at was the University of Denver, and it was going far left. And I said, I'm done with this. I had just done a 4-year project, a major National Science Foundation randomized field experiment, brought in $1 million to do the research on it or more. And that's not what the university wanted to do. They wanted to hire on a career, track. They wanted to hire a tenure track, somebody who was from Harvard but was Marxist and black or Latino or what. And these are the guys I was competing with for the jobs, and I knew there was no way I was going to get them. So I basically said, I'm done with this. This is just too insane for me. I'll go somewhere and apply the skills and make some money or do something, but not this.
Well, Thomas Sewell and Walter Williams were laughing about how when they got their PhDs, there were universities who wanted to hire them because they didn't agree with their conservative politics, but they were the right color. Yeah. And they were cracking up because this was in the 70s. They were able.
Yeah, 70s, sure.
They were able to get a job.
By the 70s, that's what it was about.
Yeah.
And it's gotten increasingly that way in universities today.
Well, I think they hire anybody but black people, though. So, I look at University of Michigan, and I look at the Latinos, I look at the Asian Indians, and their populations are 10, 15 times that of black students. At my school at University of Michigan, that is certainly true. And that's what they call diversity. And it's not, see, when we look at these issues, like when I look at Asian Indians and Asians, period, they take education very seriously. They're not like white Americans or black Americans. They take education very seriously, and they put it at the forefront of the families. They put it at the forefront of the family's routine. And I learned that from having Asian friends and living in a neighborhood that basically transitioned to an Asian community with Filipino, Chinese vendors, business people, and you see the kids in the back room studying, and I became friends with a lot of these restaurant owners and vendors. Right, they became my friends. The cleaning people, and they would say to me, they would share their secret. They go, Charles, my children are really going to school now in the back. They say they go to school, and then when they come home, they go to real school. And I trained my daughter that way. In the daytime, she'd go to school, but when she came home to me, I would put her, I had her way ahead of the class in terms of math, in terms of science. I remember one time I said, what are you studying in history today, baby? We were on our way to school. We had about a 30-minute ride. And she said, oh, well, we're studying we're studying American government. I said, do you know anything about it? Why didn't you tell me that last night? She said, well, I really forgot, but I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really interested. I said, do you know anything about it? She said, no. So I explained to her there were 3 branches of government. So she memorized everything, the 3 branches of government, what they did, who they were, examples of who she'd met through her father. And like she knew J.C. Watts. She knew John Conyers. She knew Danny Davis. She knew all these people through my interactions. She met President Bush. She'd met the Secretary of Treasury. So she had some experiences to share, but she could relate them. And I put them all in a little package together for her in that 30-minute trip. And they always said when we got to parent-teacher conferences, Sydney is always prepared when she comes to class. She's always, she's always very knowledgeable. She contributes to and see, therein lies. So everybody thought my daughter was a mathematical genius. No, the reality was I taught her how to do math, both using a calculator and longhand. Jerry, when we came along, you did trig, you did geometry, you did differential equations. You didn't. I remember when I got an HP 41 CV. Oh, I thought I was in heaven, man, doing differential equations and stuff.
Yeah. I know. But today, today you just are not getting the cultural problems of the left. I think are going to be. I don't see how we get rid of this right away. I don't see how we end this when it gets this deeply ingrained in a generation of thinking. Unless they just realize that they're not going to get jobs, they're not going to be productive. All of the things that they've been learning how to do with all these different ideologies and expectations of social justice and the rest, that's not going to get them a job. It's not going to get them really much of anything. And so at what point do they wake up and say, this is worthless. This is not getting us in any advanced way where we want to be in a world where we've got to be productive.
Okay.
At some point or other, this becomes completely, they're depending upon the government to provide them this, the government to provide them that. And if they don't get handouts, if they don't get things provided to them, they're incapable of functioning.
Okay.
And we get a society like that gets to that point, you got a real serious problem, because your serious problem is that you're basically not going to be able to function in any kind of capacity. Charles, I'm going to have to beg off.
Okay, good.
I really enjoyed being with you. I'll come on back. Okay.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay, that was Jerome Corsi. Hey, look, folks, what we're going to do is I'm going to take calls if you want to call in at 215 867 8255. Today, the YouTube is not working, so I'm going to have to upload everything manually. So you'll have to wait. It'll be uploaded manually, and you'll enjoy the show via that. A couple of things, a couple of house cleaning things that I want to deal with real quick. Joe Biden yesterday held a leaders forum. True leaders forum. Okay. Now, a black man asked him, well, I'll let you listen to the tape. But he asked him, you're not making progress. You're not putting black people in key positions. You're not doing what we expect you to do when we, talk to you. Well, this is what they got in response. This is how Joe Biden talked to him. Listen. Okay.
A lot of people in our community are getting a little anxious because they're not seeing enough of the progress they thought they would have seen at this point. Let's not disappoint them, and let's not get to a place where voters in Georgia begin to second guess.
Okay, let me respond. I've got to go. Let me respond. There's a lot to respond to here. Let's get something straight. You shouldn't be disappointed. What I've done so far is more than anybody else has done this far. Okay? Number one. Number two, I mean what I say when I say it. I mean what I say when I say it. I'm the only person who's ever run on 3 platforms that I was told could not possibly win the election, and I never ceased from it. One was on restoring the soul of this country because of what I saw happen in Charlottesville. That was it. No one else was talking about it. The words of presidents matter. Nobody else, no progressive, was talking about it. I did.
Wow. So because he thinks, now I don't remember, Joe, I'm sorry. I stopped the record. I did the wrong thing here. Let's see. We decided that it was lost. The recorded audio was lost. Warning, recorded audio was lost. Let's see. Let's go back and go. Let's go. Let's go. Here we go. Let's go. Okay, here we go. So Joe Biden thinks that he was the only person talking about Charlottesville. He actually thought that. Everybody was talking about Charlottesville. They were wrong, of course, because they kept saying that President Trump sided with the. He didn't denounce the white supremacists. Well, there are very few white supremacists to begin with. They were, just regular people who were supporting the monuments and of Robert E. Lee. I've been there. I've been to Richmond, seen that monument actually. And did it make me happy? No. It wouldn't have made Robert E. Lee happy because he said we should not put in the face of America and the United States of America the fact that we rebelled against the country. He was very clear. Here is the military leader of the Confederation who said, and the Confederate States, who said we should not put in the face of the country the fact that we seceded and we fought them and we lost over 650,000 Americans in battle. It's not including all the people who died of injuries 10 years later. Okay? So did we lose 1 million people in that war? Who knows? Because, they counted, folks dying differently then. But Joe Biden says, I'm the only one. We ain't talking about Charlottesville, dude. We talking about making substantive appointments. You appoint Hispanics to Secretary of Commerce. You appoint Hispanics to Secretary of Labor. Blacks have one black held that job. That was, she was fine as hell too under Bill Clinton. God, I can't come up with her name right now. See her face, gorgeous woman. Anyway, she was Secretary of Labor. But other than that, we haven't had a black person. They talk about people of color. I don't consider Richardson, who was as a Democrat, Bob Richardson, to be a man of color. He passed for a white boy all these years, and all of a sudden he's Hispanic, kind of like Geraldo Rivera. You know, he used to be Jerry Rivers. Seriously. So look, but Biden's going to punt on the executive order issue too, but he talks about the voting rights issue, and it tickled me to death. This is what he said about the voting rights issue, which we really don't need. We just need a president to enforce the Constitution. Here we go.
I like H.R. 1 and I like H.R. 4. But let me tell you something. We're going to have a hell of a hard time getting that passed through a Republican Senate. So the question is, what can we do in the meantime? I'm going to push him.
Wow, I'm going to push him. Push who? He's not going to push you. Nobody. He can't push McConnell. He has no juice. McConnell runs the Senate. He runs the executive branch.
So there's some things that I'm going to be able to do by executive order. I'm not going to hesitate to do it.
Wow. Like what, Joe?
But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to do what used to, Benita, you probably used to get angry with me during the debates when you'd have some of the people you were supporting say, on day one, I'm going to executive order to do this. Not within the constitutional authority. I am not going to violate the Constitution. Executive authority that my progressive friends talk about is way beyond the bounds. And as one of you said, maybe you, Reverend Al, whether it's far left or far right, there is a Constitution. It's our only hope, our only hope. And the way to deal with it is where I have executive authority, I will use it to undo every single damn thing this guy has done by executive authority. But I'm not going to exercise executive authority where it's questioned, where I can come along and say, I can do away with assault weapons. There's no executive authority to do away with that.
Well, why did you say that during the election? You certainly said you were going to do away with assault weapons. And I remember that very clearly. In fact, I'm going to play a clip here. I'll pull it up. Joe Biden. You can't make this stuff up about these guys. I mean, it's just there. Biden, let's see. Biden assault weapons ban. Let's see here. I bet you we'll have a clip in like a second. I bet you it'll just pop right up, right? Rifle ban. Assault rifle ban. Okay, here we go. And, because he said it. Not me. He did. He said, the first thing I'm going to do when I get in office, I'm going to, get your guns. I'm going to get your guns. Mandatory buybacks. Let's see here. Let's see. Let's go. Okay, I'm looking at the buyback. Fueling. I'm trying to see here. I got a little glare on the screen. Dissector attacks Biden's on guns. Trump promises to tighten gun rules and gives. Okay, let's see if we can pull this up. Biden is clear that he is going to take your guns. Take your guns. Are you kidding? Yeah, we're going to get those guns, baby. Got to get the guns. Are you kidding me? I mean, this is what he said, not me. I mean, and you can't make this stuff up. You can't make it up. Let's see, it's a Trump rally in Minneapolis, but it's not a Trump rally that I want. What I want is Joe Biden. I want Joe Biden saying that he was going to take your guns. Here we go. Let's see if we can pull this up. High capacity magazines. Oh boy. These guys, these jokers are just that, jokers, I tell you. They are real losers. Let's see here. Return of Ohio State football gives fall athletes a lift. Oh, that's been old news. They've been playing ball for a while. Let's see here. Politico. Let's see. Man with gun control accusations is full of it. Okay, let's see. Here we go. See if Joe Biden can enlighten us here. Okay. I don't think he can, but he certainly said he's going to come take our guns. He's going to take our guns through executive what you call it?
He just clarified it. Wait. Take the AR force gun. Don't tell me there's a lot of guys want to. I'm not worried. Give me a break. Here's the deal. I said our gable.
Oops. That's Politico. That was in Detroit, the auto worker. And the former black president, he told a worker in Detroit that he was full of SHIT after the man accused him of wanting to take away our guns. They say the spat was caught. He said he was full of SHIT, man. I can't believe it. Now, I played it for you. I mean, it wasn't that clear, but I played it for you because it's true. That's what he said. Then he gets on with his leaders, right? He says, "Hey, I can't really take back assault weapons. I talked about it." Biden says that the video confirmed. He was confronted by a hard hat. Said he accused the president of actively trying to diminish our Second Amendment rights, take away our guns, which Biden immediately shot back, "You're full of SHIT," close quote. "I support the Second Amendment," said Joe, "just as long as you don't want to use guns, or have any guns." Oh, God. Just like right now, if you yell fire, that's not free speech. Oops. Joe Biden. It's going to be interesting, folks, I tell you. Hopefully Trump will prevail, and we won't have these issues. So, look, we're currently getting ready to leave Red State Talk Radio, and we'll be back tomorrow. So let's see if we can play a little Christmas music and Charlie Brown and see what's happening out here. Merry Christmas, baby.
You should treat me nice. Merry Christmas, baby. You should treat me nice. Give me a diamond ring for Christmas.